everyone. Welcome to another Otherworld podcast. We're going to dive straight into a conversation. Deni and I haven't even uttered a word to each other yet, other than about sound. So we're going to dive straight in and see. Deni, I'll be really keen to hear what's been happening for you since our last podcast.
Yeah, it's been a really good week, actually. Really productive. I've been getting lots done and had lots of just interesting back and forwards with myself about what I'm doing and what my kind of like what my purpose is. Interesting. It's really kind of coming up, and I find that just when I sit really comfortably in my painting world, then this other place comes up, which is this land and First People and being out there. And it feels like there's this continuous balancing between the two. And what I'm learning as I surrender to it is that it's not an either or. It's that the two are very integral to each other. So I've just had a lot of that coming up, which I'm sure I'll bring into our conversation. But first, I'd love to hear how you've been for the week.
Oh, my week's just been crazy. I mean, I'm in the middle of renovating. So, managing the renovations and actually being part of the renovations. I do all the painting work. And working full time, I feel like I've constantly this week gone from wearing my painting overalls to pulling my painting overalls down and sitting here in a nice jumper, talking to people and doing my work, and then pulling up the overalls again and darting outside with a paintbrush in hand and trying really hard not to show my hands because they're usually covered in paint. And then working with builders who've just been coming backwards and forwards. But what I have noticed is I've just been so energized this week. I don't know if that's a shift that other people are experiencing. I just had all of this energy that I think previously I didn't seem to have. So even though there's been a lot going on and it's been a lot of changing from one role to another role, I feel like I've had the energy to cope with it. And I've also noticed my sleeping patterns have changed again this week, and I've been sleeping deeper, haven't been waking up in the middle of the night. And so everything feels as if there's been this energetic shift within that's created more energy to use. And boy, have I needed it. So it's been really good that that's happened this week. But those have been the sort of main things I've noticed within myself.
Well, welcome to my world of painting and putting on painting overalls and taking off painting overalls all week. Kind of interesting that we've both been in that state this week.
Yeah, I wish I was doing the type of painting you're doing. I'd much rather be doing
Not walls. I've been doing walls too, by the way.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Well, yeah, I've been painting a carport, which looked easy but was incredibly difficult.
Oh, yes, I can imagine.
Yeah. Oh, so what else? What I'd love to hear more about what you touched on earlier on.
Just so much. But funnily enough, I mean, as always, it all comes like literally in the last hour before the podcast. Was just like everything just sort of landed and reshuffled in time for this conversation. What happened during the week was, as you know, but we haven't spoken about it, is I received a phone call from Philip, who's a First Nations person at Mudijulu that we work with in taking women out onto his homeland. And we had a retreat planned for October, and that's now pushed out until March next year. And I don't know about you, but certainly for me, the process of letting go of that October time has actually been more difficult than I probably appreciated. And in some ways, I wonder, and this is just an inquiry I'm bringing up now to myself, if I dive into my painting as a way of not almost feeling what I need to feel about that, and about whether that's right or not right. And I know it isn't a right or not right. So I'm just bringing up what's coming up for me now. But certainly hearing from Philip, and we haven't really mentioned it to him yet that the times have changed. A lot came up around that of wanting to take women there more, and feeling the desire in the people there and Philip and in his family to have us go. It just kind of brought up some stuff. And so, you know, as I do during the week, I go into, I'm here to paint. I'm not here to take women to land. I'm here to paint. Just dove into that. And just before I got on the call, when I say just before, it was about an hour and a half before, I listened to a podcast I don't listen to very often, but every now and then, for whatever reason, I do. And it's very deeply about land. It's called The Time of the Feminine. It's beautiful. I really suggest it to anyone interested in earth and land. And the woman that they were interviewing is Jyoti Ma, and she was one of the original conveners of the International Council of the 13 Grandmothers. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't heard of that, listeners, then please look it up. It is the First Nations people from all around the world that gathered, but they've been together for a very long time. And it is about the First Nations people holding this place that has largely been forgotten, and the importance of it now. I mean, Fee, I was in tears in this episode. I mean, literally, I was just like, it just reminded me. I mean, everything in it was just like the things that we know, that we talk about, that come to us when we're on land. You know, the reciprocity thing that we keep talking about. She brought those words up. That is what she does. She's the founder of The Fountain and a vision keeper. And she talks, her goal is this reciprocity. And I'm listening to it thinking, God, that is just what we intuited when we were out there. And then she said, you know, at one point in this podcast, she said, we're here to remind ourselves of who we are. Now, that's what Philip said to us, of what he would do if we brought women to him. It's just like, I was just blown away and overwhelmed with, I don't know, it's almost like we've got this opportunity, and are we fully stepping into it? I guess that's what's been running through my body. It's just this, you know, I was shaking, just thinking, what am I doing? Like, why aren't we going in October? Why are we not going every month? Because that's kind of like, I really want you to listen to this podcast. It's so huge. I'd love everyone to listen to it, but just the messages in there around what the earth is doing and how important this time is, just blew me away. I mean, I know it, we know it, but it was just such a humongous reminder of purpose.
Wow. I can feel the emotion that sits behind that. And I know we've had a few conversations around this October date shifting, and we've got kind of used, I think, to the dates changing, because as we went through the COVID experience, the last two retreats constantly changed and the dates, and we learned through that process to let it go. And this one has always felt slightly different, because Philip has been calling us in, and yet we had this sense of, oh, we need to push it back to March, and it kind of felt like we were going against what was being shown to us. And you know, we're not unused to getting in our own way around these things. We've done it a few times now, and I can definitely hear the questions that must have been surfacing around that. So yeah, it's one of those, I mean, I don't know what to say, because it just feels like we need to sit with it and see what surfaces. I mean, October is next month now. That feels so close. I don't know about going out there every month. I think it's such big, deep work when we do go out there that monthly would feel a little bit too much. But for me, it just, I think it's just that we have spent a few years now deepening our connection to Philip and the original people of the land there, and exploring that. And I think for you and I, we're still learning how to trust that experience more and more. And each of these questions that surface, I think, bring us into a place of understanding or deepening our trust in the process. But it's hard to just sort of feel into that now and know what the answer is. So I guess it's given us both something to explore and feel into a little bit more deeply.
Yeah. And I mean, I think monthly, I agree with you. That was me just being over the top as I can be. But yes, just that there was just that feeling of, you're so right. This is the first time that we've been able to go, and Philip is calling us, and we're the ones that are not. And that's, I guess, why it's brought up this whole different feeling in my system. And I really felt that when I was on the phone with him the other day. I mean, I was almost speechless when speaking to him. And I've kind of sat with that since, just thinking, because I guess I'm feeling somewhat of a shame that we're not going in October, and speaking that to him, it just feels, it doesn't feel great to do that, to bring that up.
I can understand that too, but I think it's as much as trusting the process that we're deepening with them, it's about trusting ourselves too, and knowing, and believing in our connection as well, and knowing when it's right. And I think that's also a big piece of it. So maybe we're learning through this experience how to say no if it doesn't feel right to us, and how to work with that, with a deeper trust.
And somehow rather feeling into that reciprocity thing, and maybe there is a finding that sweet spot between both.
Because I think we've often talked about this bridge we're building through these retreats, and how it is reciprocal. It's for us as much as it's for them, and their desire to share with us what we desire to learn. But it does come, it comes, what we want is for it to be like this, so we meet in the middle. Well, I do anyway, because that's balanced for me, that's perfect. But I do feel there's a piece in here around, us listening to ourselves as well, and learning to trust that in a deeper way. Because I know that I've sat with this too and felt this feels so wrong to be knowing they're calling us out there, and we're kind of changing the dates and saying, no, it's March. And that has felt very uncomfortable at times. So obviously every time we get a call from Philip, it kind of ignites that connection again. It deepens our connection. It moves us into that place of being there, being out on the land, and knowing how healing and how amazing and how powerful that is. So every time we speak to him, I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel him around me all the time anyway. I feel like that connection is there all the time, almost like they're watching over us in a really beautiful, non-invasive way, but just that sort of, we're here. We're here, we're connected, we're calling, that kind of way. So when you actually have a physical conversation with them, it kind of deepens that connection so much more as well.
Yes, and I feel that, and I also feel when the connection isn't there. And that usually is a call for me to, I see that as a call for me to shift a little bit, shift something, shift focus, shift something. But also on this podcast, Fi, I mean, Jyoti Ma went into describing in detail what we've never really been able to put into words, or we try and put into words, around the energies and around why we're called to certain sacred sites and what's actually happening, you know, in terms of, you know, she goes into what they've been holding as First Nations people, and the importance of that now, and even into the bit of where there was a time where it was like, okay, we now need to open our knowledge to whoever is seeking it, and just that, and, you know, went on to say, you know, if you're listening to this, then you are part of that. It was just so, and also just the energies and the way the energies work from those sites. It really was a fascinating listen, but also there was so much in the call that you could just feel, as opposed to need to hear. Like I said, it moved me so much. I mean, she had this mantra to give us all. And during the mantra, she was saying, you know, you need to say this 3 times. And I was in tears just saying the words. It was just like the words, like they were exactly the words I needed to hear and say.
Well, I look forward to listening to that, and hopefully some of our listeners will do that too. And I think it certainly feels like a beautiful way to describe the work that we do as well, and also to kind of deepen for each of us that connection to land that I think so many of us are craving at the moment.
Yeah. Yes, and also I guess, you know, it's the sort of thing that reignited that feeling in me of what we're doing, or what, you know, is important. One thing she said was she's an elder, obviously, and she was talking about eldering, and she said she was very specific, at the age of 51 you become an elder in you become a learner elder. You step into eldering or learning to be an elder, and at the age of 60 you become an elder. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, you know, given what we know happens in the 50s. I remember seeing you go through it, and now I am, and you've stepped into your 60s, and it's just this kind of interesting, it was so specific. And I looked at that with, okay, where was I at 51? I'm now 55, and what was happening there to change that and to walk towards 60. That's quite interesting.
I love that perception of it, because yes, I remember that journey in my 50s. It was really difficult because I was feeling this call so much to step into this place of being an elder, and yet so resistant to it because I didn't feel old or wise enough to claim that role for myself. And I was very lucky to find some older women to talk to about that, and to attend an elders gathering, and I felt very much like I had my L plates on at that gathering, and you know, I was like almost like they were here. Learner, I'm just here to see what comes, you know, listen to them all, and that was big for me, and I got the opportunity to ask questions of them. And I do remember one of them saying, because I said, I'm feeling like the call to step into, you know, this role of elder, and she said to me, this isn't something that you step into, this is something that just happens, it just evolves from within you. You've just got to get out of the way of it. And those were words that really helped me to just stop resisting it and just let it happen, and accept that that's where I'm at in life, and be happy with that, and be okay with that, and stop trying to make it an ego thing, which it wasn't. It never is, because we move into it naturally. It's part of who we are. So yeah, I can totally understand. And it's interesting for me to watch you going through it now, and feeling you know, because it wasn't so long ago for me, I can still remember the struggle. And I know everyone goes through it differently, and your struggle may be different to mine, or you may not have a struggle. But yes, I think we all experience it in a slightly different way.
Yes, for sure. And no, I can for sure I definitely have an L plate on.
I feel like I've got my P's on now.
Oh, I think you've stepped into it. 60. You said 60.
Yeah, I guess so. But I think that I also think there's, you know, it's almost like when you reach this place of acceptance. So yeah, I feel like I'm actually proud to call myself an elder, and you know, and I love that I can sit in the place of sharing my wisdom with other people, and I love that people want to share that with me as well. But I feel like I'm, you know, I'm still catching up with the women that are older than me, because it's such a deepening. I think the acceptance of it is one big journey. That certainly was for me. And then you deepen into it. And each year, I think you just deepen that more and more and more. And I can still see people older than me that I just think, oh, yeah, I can't wait till I get to that place with it.
Well, and I think it's a cultural thing, right? I mean, hearing her speak from that Indigenous point of view, you know, a lot of the First Nations people have so much more respect of that eldering time. And, you know, in our white culture, we've lost that. You know, a woman gets to the age of 60, 65 and becomes invisible. So for us to step into that place is also going against this conditioning that we've had for a long time, that we're no longer important. So we're fighting against that piece first, you know, of you know, being proud to step into that place, and also having that that means I'm old, you know, and that I'm invisible. I mean, I don't know how many times over the last 5 years I've had older women say to me, you become invisible. And that just, the very thought of that, you know, is, and I think that is Western conditioning of what's, you know, meant to be happening. But she goes into when this happened too. So it's a fascinating, you know, look at history in terms of language as well, because I was feeling into, she was talking about the original people as opposed to Indigenous. She just talked about the original people. And I was thinking of the Aboriginals in Australia, and I have disliked using the term Aboriginal. And so I was looking at the meaning. Why is it that I prefer original to Aboriginal? And I don't know where that word, you know, like if you look it up, it talks about it being Aboriginal, being the original people of the land before colonization. And yet there was one, it looked at the etymology of the word, and ab in Latin means not, or is it as a, it's almost like an un. And so it's putting that in front of original almost goes against it, which is really interesting when you look at the etymology of the words. And one thing she was saying, as soon as I was looking it up, she was then saying the English language can keep us really entrapped, because it's all we think. So our language keeps us in a box of what we're able to speak in words. So it was just like, honestly, it was the most freakiest hour as happens, right? When you need to hear something, you hear it, and it feels like magic when you're hearing it.
Yes, absolutely. But just to go back a little bit to what you were saying around, you know, the Western culture, you know, I feel like we're in such a time now of shifting a lot of those old paradigms that we've been working with for such a long time, particularly in our Western culture, that has let go of all of these traditions and honoring our elders and seeing the value and the wisdom, you know, that is held with the elders community. I mean, there's so much value. I mean, over the centuries of letting that go, we've lost our way because we haven't had we haven't used or lent into the elders in our community to guide us. And therefore, you know, we've thrown them on the the waste pile, which has been really sad to see. But I feel like we're in this time now where we can really shift that. And it's our generation, the women that are moving into this now at this time, at this shift in paradigm that we're in. We're the kind of trailblazers for that. We're showing the way for that. We are making ourselves known. We are standing in our power as an elder. We are claiming our place back again in society. And, I feel really, I feel like a spiritual warrior. Just all that. We're claiming our place back again. And, we're doing that. We're reweaving that into the fabric of our society now. That's I guess, one of our roles that we're here to work with. So the more that we all step into that, the more that we all acknowledge and hold that place of power within ourselves, the quicker that will shift in our Western society. And I really hope that in my lifetime, I see that really evolve in a very conscious way for our communities.
I'm reminded now, Fi, as you're speaking, of Mother Maiden Crone and the how we rethought that through to Firestarter, Creatrix, Wayshower, and Wisdom Keeper. And we kind of took the age out of that. And as you're speaking, the age came straight back in, because I so feel in that Wayshower. And then there is the 60 on, or sometime, I'm not saying that's exact, although she did, you become this Wisdom Keeper. And they seem like I feel so much more aligned with those words than I did with the old terms of Mother Maiden, Mother Crone. This feeling of Wayshower really, really sits with me in a really beautiful way.
Oh, I so love that. Yeah. And it's the only frame of reference I use now. I mean, even when you say Maiden Mother Crone, my whole body goes, ugh, ugh, I just can't stand feeling so restricted and limited by those archetypes, I think, which from memory were created by a man. And so, says it all really. And I love the way that, we look at this, and as you were speaking there, it kind of made me acknowledge maybe that when we reach that phase of the Wisdom Keeper, maybe that's when we do embody all of them. Maybe that's the relationship between age, as we move through them. It might be more of a conscious stepping into that archetype. But then as we reach that Wisdom Keeper stage, we can embody all of them in a really conscious way. So yes, I love that frame of reference. I think at some point we should maybe do a podcast on that, because it feels like it would be really helpful to a lot of women to maybe view themselves through the eyes of those 4 archetypes instead of the old ones that are really not really relevant anymore.
I know, and they came through so strongly when they came through, and in a way they've just kind of been sitting there almost like placeholders, which is beautiful, because when the time's right, then they will become we'll speak about it more, or they'll become, I have totally noticed that Wisdom Keeper is used quite frequently now, whereas at the time, which was a few years ago now, it wasn't so used or heard. I certainly had not heard of it as much, but when we spoke those, and that was actually when we were out at Akarula on the Dragon Retreat, that they came in really strongly.
Yeah, and that's that, when we can acknowledge that things are starting to shift in the collective, because these words start to, become more seen and more heard in the collective. So we know that something is shifting there as we see them rising or around us, or people using them more. And that, for me, that feels so beautiful, because it kind of affirms that feeling of, oh yeah, we're bringing this energy in. Our generation is responsible for bringing that in and really starting to anchor it in the collective, so that people work with it more consciously.
Yeah. Remember when we were out there in the trees and we called them the crone trees because they really did look like these wizened old women. And then the wisdom keeper. I just remember that strongly. It was such a beautiful time. I've been thinking a lot of Akarola lately.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know that at some point we're going to go back out there with a group of women and really explore that in a probably a slightly different way than you and I did it on retreat. But it feels so much like that's starting to call our awareness in a really conscious way.
And the other thing that I put up on the YouTube channel, I'm not sure if it's on our podcast, Apple iTunes yet, was our interview that we did with Tracy Tompkins. And we did it a couple of months ago, but it's up now, and I re-listened to it, and it's such a beautiful, rich conversation, and it's there on YouTube for anyone that's interested. It's a fascinating look at her life through the eyes of an artist, and obviously someone who walks with the land and always has done in a really beautiful spiritual way. It is a really beautiful conversation. So that's another one to look and listen to if you're listening.
Yes, thank you. I'm just writing down "Walking with the Land" because that really there's a book title. It's all there. So I've written it down. Oh my goodness, that was such a beautiful conversation. So, where are you feeling at the moment? What are you sitting with in terms of the energy and what's around us and what's supported? We're just moving into September. What's this feeling like for you at the moment? What do you think we have in store for us this month?
Yeah, I think it's we're in Virgo season, and Virgo is the place of body and it's the place of service. So it's almost like where you tend to the home, and the home being yourself in a way, doing the things that you need to do, getting your house in order. That's how Virgo kind of feels, and that in itself kind of feels like getting things in order in terms of what you're doing, what you're here to do, as well as kind of like putting things in order with. And that kind of feels like where I'm at. I'm just in a bit of a process of tending to all those things, getting, and there's such a trust too, because it's something that I'm reminded of, is just this place of just really deeply trusting that I am where I'm meant to be, and that when things come up like today, that it's the perfect timing. So that's just a quick kind of feeling of where I think. What about you, Fee?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been feeling this kind of shift coming that feels very much related to, first of all, we're moving into a different month. And I think the month, if we were looking at it through the numbers, this is a month that aligns to the energy of the month of the year, of the year itself. So we're kind of feeling that more consciously this month, because the two things are aligned, and that's the energy of connection. And I certainly feel like we're moving into, or one of the aspects of it anyway, is this deepening of our reconnection again to others, taking the sort of inner journey that we've been experiencing quite a lot more into an external place and reconnecting with each other again. And I can start to already feel that shifting in myself, that almost the desire to get out there and reconnect at a kind of deeper level with people again. And so that's what I'm kind of sitting in at the moment, just this feeling that that's starting to come in. And therefore that's only going to grow. It's going to start to become part of our journey moving forwards. I think the messages that I've got from the Akasha this year have all been about the end of the year being more about reconnecting again and bringing ourselves back into that we are place rather than the I am one. And as we move into September, that's really what I'm feeling, is that shift starting to to kind of make itself known. So I'm kind of interested to see what that means, both for me personally and also for us as a collective, how that process really unfolds, because we've spent so much time at that I am level. Well, I mean, I say so much time, it's a blink of an eye, really. It's all relative, but it feels like we've been on a very deep inner journey. So moving into this energy feels kind of exciting, but also a little bit, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means for me personally. And I've still got, I think we're sitting in that place of being pulled one way, but still feeling quite attached to the other. So it feels like a sort of almost like a toing and froing between, oh, I want to reconnect, but I'm quite happy being here, and not reconnecting. So yeah, a little bit of an inner battle going on around that. But I suspect a lot of people will be feeling that over the next month as that energy starts to sort of make itself more known to us.
And I think also being here in the Southern Hemisphere, we're moving into spring. We've just moved into spring. So that itself kind of gives you that feeling of being out and about a little bit more. I know it's different on the other side of the planet, and it's going into more that autumn phase. But also the other thing is I've just read that we're going to have a very, very wet spring, wet summer, and that they're predicting lots of flooding again, and I've looked at what's happening in Pakistan with the flooding that's happening there, and the temperatures all over the world, and there's that piece of just what's going on in the world and what we can do to right what's going on in the world. Not that I think we can right it anymore, it's just how do we move with it.
Well, I think it's deepening our connection to the earth and sending more energy there to support what the earth is going through. I mean, she's in, I guess, battle mode. She's fighting for survival at the moment, and we've been so disconnected from her as a whole. Reconnection is the way to resolve this. So the more that we can reconnect to the land, I think the more we can be in a place of reciprocal healing, both for ourselves and for her. So if you can't do anything else, that's something you can do, is just go and get your feet on the land and or sit with conscious intention to connect with the land and send healing and love, without any expectation, and see what comes back, because something always will. But we can all send that to the earth, to the planet. And I think if you just think, if every single person on the planet just took 5 minutes to do that, what would that create? What on earth would that create in the world?
What a lovely thought. What a beautiful way to end our chat this week.
Yay.
It's been lovely.
Yeah.
But before we go, was there any questions this week, Fi?
Oh, I do have a couple. I can have a look if you just bear with me, because I'm not very quick at looking things up on my phone. So maybe you can sing a song or something while I do that.
I'm not going to put our audience through that, Fi.
No. Maybe hum something.
What I might do is say that on the 16th of September, for anyone in Sydney, I'm opening my studio. So I would love, it's between 5 and 8 o'clock on a Friday, and the whole laneway is opening up. So I'd love if anyone's interested in seeing inside an artist studio. And there's an exhibition next door, photographic exhibition, and Danielle Wright is also bringing some of her work. So yeah, I'd love to see you here.
Beautiful. I've got a quick question from Lucy, who sent in a question a couple of weeks ago. She said, what do you think déjà vu is? So I'm going to hand that over to you first of all.
Oh, great. What do I think déjà vu is? I mean, I experience déjà vu a lot. Look, I could give you ideas that I don't know if they're true or not. They're just feelings. And that would be that when you have that feeling of I've been here before, I could say that that is a look into a memory of something similar that's happened in the past. And I don't necessarily mean of this lifetime. It's almost like there's something here that is resonating with something that's happened before. And I guess it's a beautiful thing to go, okay, if I'm feeling this and there's something here for me. So what is it? And a deeper look rather than just it's kind of, for me, a similar thing when there's a really big sign, really big synchronicity. It's a similar thing of what's here for me. What is this pointing to? It's a marker for me to take notice of.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, actually. I think it's a precognitive experience of paying attention. You're being asked to really pay attention in that moment to what you're feeling or what you're thinking. Because I always think with deja vu, often it's such a strong feeling sense in your body that it's showing you, it's a message that's showing you something to pay attention to. And often I think to maybe choices or experiences that you've had in the past to just sort of take it on board, feel into it, and feel what's right for you in that moment to explore, because it may be almost like a warning sign. You've been down this path before, you've had this experience before, and you made a certain choice. Pay attention to this now. You're feeling this really strongly in your body. It's a soul memory that's surfacing, and it's there, it's coming up with that feeling so strongly, because you may choose something different in this experience that will be more positive for you. So I think it's a symbol too of something to pay attention to. But I'd be really interested to hear if any of our listeners have a different idea of what deja vu is.
I like the soul memory. I think that encompasses it right there. And I think we live our lives on remote control so much of the time, those of us who are just wanting to bring ourselves into the present moment more and more and more, I'll be less so. But I think that so many of us just live in this remote control place, and those moments just kind of like wake us up.
Yes, absolutely. It's a message to wake up.
Thank you. And if anyone else has a question, please do not hesitate to put it anywhere that you can find us. Send us an email or put it on the notes or the feedback on YouTube or Apple iTunes.
Perfect.
Well, have a good week.
You too.